What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Bench Mob. It's your boy Danko again. Obviously, by now you should know who I am, hopefully. But I'm joined with my co-host Marcus again tonight, and pretty much, as you guys know, the NBA season started yesterday. There was a handful of games today as well. And yeah, in today's video, we're pretty much just gonna run through every single team and provide a hot take. I guess it can be a positive take, it could be a negative take towards your team, but pretty much we're just gonna predict what we believe will happen to these particular franchises based on whether it's a player or on the overall team's fortunes. So I'm excited to do this, and obviously if we do say something that might upset you guys, feel free to discuss it in the comments and we'll be willing to reply back. So yeah, I'm excited about this, Marcus. I don't know about if you're feeling the same way, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, pumped for this. I really like bold predictions, hot takes. This kind of realm, I guess, of the NBA, maybe even the NBA YouTube community, something that a lot of people I know enjoy, and I personally love it. The reason why hot takes are made, I guess, is because it's in the realm of possibilities. So it's one of those things that always raises a question mark over something happening, but there is a little bit of truth and there is a little bit of, I guess, untruth to a situation. So yeah, I'm very keen to just do a deep dive into every team, I guess, and I think we'll kick it off. I believe you are even, so you would have the first team.
Yeah, I've got Atlanta, so we're going alphabetical order. I've got the first team off the rank, so first cab off the rank, I should say. So basically, the hot take I have for Atlanta is Jalen Johnson becomes the second star alongside Trae Young, much in the same vein as a John Collins. And in my opinion, I believe he almost has more upside and potential than a guy like John Collins. Similar sort of body, similar sort of athletic makeup. You could argue Jalen Johnson is more skillful than a John Collins, but he definitely has shown from his first year to what we've seen in preseason and obviously in the first game today against the Hornets that he definitely has that potential to become that much needed second star, even though they obviously have a guy like DeJounte Murray. The jury's still out about that particular tandem in the backcourt. So I think if Jalen Johnson can really continue on this trajectory that he's on, there's no reason why he can't be that much needed second star alongside a guy like Trae Young. So for that reason, that's my hot take for the Atlanta Hawks.
I seriously love that hot take. I feel like with the three on Yeka, Jalen, AJ Griffin, Atlanta really need one or even two or three of those guys to really, I guess, take the load off Trae Young. And yeah, Jalen today, phenomenal, played great throughout preseason. So that hot take, I certainly see coming into fruition 100%. My first take, the Boston Celtics. For the Boston Celtics to reach championship glory, Kristaps Porzingis has to be a secondary option with Jason Tatum being the number one guy. I think KP has to be number two because we've seen JT, JB reach the Eastern Conference Finals before. They've made the finals before, but ultimately in their, I guess, short-lived, or it's not even so short-lived, they played together for a while now. They haven't, won a championship, and I think Porzingis, being that unicorn that he is far more damaging to teams out in the East as a big guy who's versatile, plays like a guard, than Jaylen Brown necessarily is, as good as he is. I think KP has to be the secondary guy for them to win a championship.
Yeah, he was phenomenal today. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks. He just made it. He was a matchup nightmare, a defensive nightmare for the Knicks today. Those, high pick and pops that he was pretty much manifesting all game, and that range that he showed on that 3-point shot that just pretty much opens up the whole defense. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, although not the same player, very similar physical makeup. So for a guy like KP at 7'3" to be able to put the ball on the deck, shoot the 3 ball, and be a defensive presence like he is, I think it's just going to make the Celtics all that more harder to defend. So if he can get as many looks on offense as possible, it's just going to make this Celtics team really scary. So I really like that take in my humble opinion. But coming up next, we have the Brooklyn Nets, and for them, this one, controversial because everyone obviously talks about him just being a one-dimensional player, and hence why he hasn't really, catapulted as much as we would have liked to see him. But I believe my hot take for the Brooklyn Nets is that Cam Thomas can become the number one scoring option for the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, we saw what Mikal Bridges did last year when he got traded. We saw that production was significant, but we also saw what Cam Thomas did once those guys departed. 3 straight 40-point games. Yes, there's question marks about his defense, his playmaking ability. Is he just purely a shot first kind of player where as soon as he gets the ball, he doesn't look to open up the court with any other part of his game in terms of whether it's off the dribble, facilitating, and like I said, the lockdown defending. But yeah, what he brought today, and nearly single-handedly taking him over the line against the Cavs, 36 points in 23 minutes. It's phenomenal. He's always going to have that scoring punch, and yeah, for them to be serious contenders or serious to give themselves a serious push in the East, he needs to be on like that night in, night out. So it's only going to be a matter of time before I believe he becomes the number one scoring option for that team, whether it's a starting role, even if it's off the bench. I still think he can be their number one scoring option for sure. So that's my hot take for the Brooklyn Nets.
Love it. Cam Thomas, one of those guys I just root for in the NBA. Been just a bucket ever since out of college, at LSU, coming into the league. The guy really could average 25, and he says it. He really could. Like today we saw 7 minutes. In the first 7 minutes he played, he had like 15, finished with damn near 40, almost won the game off that game-winning shot. So love that take, and I wholeheartedly agree that Cam Thomas honestly could be the Nets' number one scorer over Mikal Bridges. That's just what he does. He's the gifted scorer. Maybe the off-the-court attitude, that kind of hinders it. But nevertheless, I completely agree. My hot take, my next one, the Charlotte Hornets. Steve Clifford to be fired before the All-Star break. The Charlotte Hornets do it again, fire their head coach. They are in absolute shambles once again, and yeah, no news, I feel like. I feel like that is in the realm of possibilities, and yeah, it would not surprise me one bit.
It's happened once under the MJ era. It might happen again post-MJ era. So you know how strongly I feel on Steve Clifford and how much I dislike him as a coach. Very old school style, doesn't play his rookies historically. Obviously today with Brandon Miller, had a phenomenal debut, 13-3-2, and he showed that he did give faith in Brandon Miller in the clutch and in crunch time. But again, historically speaking, Steve Clifford, not the most traditional coach in that sense. So obviously, there's a lot of good coaches still in the open market. You got Budenholzer, who lost his job with the Bucks, but he's still a championship pedigree coach. There's a couple other young guys waiting in the wings, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I definitely wouldn't dislike. I wouldn't mind seeing that, I should say, and hopefully that does come to fruition, because I think it'll definitely help the development of these younger guys coming up for sure. But going up next, we got the Chicago Bulls, and my hot take for this team is that it gets blown up by the trade deadline. The whole team, obviously, what they initially thought was going to work out well in the dynamic with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and obviously with Lonzo Ball not being on the court, there's a lot of question marks now about the direction of the team, and clearly it hasn't worked out. So in my opinion, by some point in the trade deadline, one of those guys is going to be moved. What they get moved for, which team shows interest, that's another story. But that's my hot take, and I believe that at some point it's going to end up in a blow up, and yeah, pretty much the team will be going in a different direction come the trade deadline.
I totally think that's in the realm of possibilities. Certainly could happen. My next hot take. The Cleveland Cavaliers. This one was a really challenging one to come up with, but I really do believe they could make an Eastern Conference Finals run. I think with, the developing young stars that they do have in Garland, Mobley, there's no reason for me to think why they couldn't make an Eastern Conference Finals run ahead of the Bucks and ahead of the Celtics. All these teams. Obviously, they might match up against those teams as well, but I certainly do think they've leaped over the Brooklyn Nets, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Miami Heat, and I really do think that they can have, and the New York Knicks as well. I do think that they will be in the Eastern Conference Finals come at the end of this season.
Yeah, I think you saw with the acquisition of Max Strus, he has playoff pedigree now after a number of years on the Miami Heat. Had a great debut, 27-12, 7 threes. Guy like George Niang obviously spent time with the Sixers. He's been in a lot of winning situations, and I think those two acquisitions along the continued
Amani
development of
Bates.
guys like, obviously, Imani Bates, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and then even a continued production from Evan Mobley. And, we know what to expect from a guy like Jared Allen. I think it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. And I think we saw that they probably underachieved last year in the playoffs. So looking to take that next step forward and, really make a push towards the finals. So, yeah, I don't hate that take whatsoever. For the Dallas Mavericks, though, today really proved the point, and something that I was harping on about to a lot of my mates, but even, to you, when I was saying that Derek Lively is a difference maker. Definitely should have started over Dwight Powell, and that should continue going forward to the season. But that's not my hot take. My hot take is, based off today's performance, Derek Lively can win Rookie of the Year and average a double-double.
Ooh.
I know that's crazy to say,
I
but
love it. I love it.
he literally, he just looked so good. The moment, like that first quarter, they were getting buckets at will at the rim. They scored 42 points in that first quarter. And then when Derek Lively entered the game, that length really bothered the San Antonio Spurs, even with the presence of Wemby. Obviously, he's not really an interior sort of presence offensively. But every time, there was a dribble penetration or they were attacking the rim, Lively was there to contest. He hustled. And then his rim running, his pick and roll play with Luka, that dynamic that they've already managed to create during the training camp preseason, it's phenomenal. And he wasn't the number one player in high school for no reason. You know what I mean? So definitely has tremendous upside. And yeah, that's my hot take. I think it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe I'm going too early with after one regular season game, but I really like what I saw from him, not only in this first game, but just across the board the last couple of games, and obviously in training camp and summer league, etc. So
Yeah.
that's my hot take for the Dallas Mavericks.
I rate that from you because I know you've been on the Lively train since he was at Duke. I remember you telling me, you're like, oh, there's this kid, Derek Lively, at Duke University. I think he'll be a really good piece. I think he even mentioned the Dallas Mavericks and how they needed a big guy. And well, he has reminiscence of Tyson Chandler. So I really, maybe he could, you know what? Maybe he could. As a rebounder, as a shot blocker, as, I guess, being in the low block, he gets a lot of dunks, he's efficient. Yeah, I do think he'll average a double-double as well. And I do think you might be on the money with this one. It was hard to kind of think about at the start when you hear names like Brandon Miller, Scoot, Wemby. But Lively might be, I guess, the most ready-made out of all the rookies. So I really do like that hot take from you. The next team.
Just before, I know you're excited to go to the next team, but just before, one more thing about Lively, because, again, big Lively fan. I think the first time I actually showed you that video, or when I mentioned it, was when he had his pro day and he hit 20 corner threes, and I'm like, he's shown that he can hit range, and you're like, oh, we'll see what happens in the season, because pro days aren't really the biggest indication sometimes, but he's got really great hands as well, and I think, again, Luka, being as unselfish as he is, he's going to get a lot of open looks. So that's all I'll say about Lively, and let his play do the talking going forward.
Yeah, no, I do actually remember that. But yeah, if he can stretch out to the three, in his NBA career, that guy is going to be he's going to be unguardable. But the next team, the Denver Nuggets, losing Bruce Brown is pivotal for them having another NBA championship, as their depth chart is somewhat diminished now without Bruce. It looks a whole lot different. I don't know if Christian Braun, as good as he is and as impressive as he has been in the preseason and in the early NBA season, I just don't know if they can go back and win the championship. And I think Bruce Brown is a pivotal part of that. I certainly think they have the team to actually go back to the finals and win, but I do think Bruce Brown could be a difference maker for them potentially winning or not winning.
Yeah, and you see with him, can guard three positions, can play three positions on the court, and today I had 24 points, mind you, against my sorry Washington Wizards, but he still has to go out and perform, and I think he's a true professional. He knows what his role is, and I think, like I said, that kind of energy guy that can really fill it up in the points category when his number's called, but also play rock solid defense, and like I said, just plug in a role when he needs to. That's the perfect guy for any team. And anyone who's saying like 22.5 million is an overpay for Bruce Brown
No.
really doesn't understand basketball too in deep, because in my opinion, he's as valuable as any, premier scorer in the league, and guys that are pretty one-dimensional. For him to be, like I said, multifaceted like that, he's a very valuable piece. And that 22.5 million that they're paying him might actually look like an underpay going forward if the Indiana Pacers can start to make some noise. But you're right. I really like that take from you. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see come crunch time in the playoffs whether a guy like Bruce Brown will be missed by the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, 100%.
Moving on to the next team, Detroit Pistons. Oh, how many times have we spoken about the Pistons?
Oh.
Going back to the draft. Oh, yeah. Going back to the draft when we did those, what does Asar Thompson being drafted by the Pistons mean to their organization? And, getting Pistons fans telling us we don't know about basketball, you should stop commenting about this, blah, 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 blah. Then you made the video about Asar Thompson
Didn't
and Jaden
help.
Ivey not being able to coexist. And, we seem to have this love-hate relationship with Detroit Pistons fans, which we can appreciate. They are a passionate bunch. But my hot take, again, involves a guy you recently discussed or was a part of that video that you did with about Asar Thompson, and that's Jaden Ivey will want a larger role in the team. You predicted he would start on the bench, and that those three guys, Cade, Azar, and Jaden Ivey, could not coexist together. And you were right. People were coming at you saying, he can't not be on a starter. He has to start. He's not going to be a bench player. What happened first game? He was coming off the bench. And the hot take, like I said, he'll want a larger role in the team. He'll eventually want out, become disgruntled about being played off the bench by Monty Williams. And eventually he'll want his own team, and he'll want out. So that's my hot take. Whether it happens, whether he's embraced that bench role, we don't know. But from all things that we sort of analysed, I believe that that's a true possibility to happen. So, that's my bold take for the Pistons.
Yeah, I do like that take. I don't think, obviously, we're blowing this up because we are doing hot takes or bold takes, but I certainly could see that happening in the near future, whether it's not this season but the next season. I do think there will be a problem with Ivy and Azar and how they fit in that rotation. Like I did mention in that video, like you mentioned just then, logically it doesn't make sense, but Pistons fans, me and them, we don't have a great relationship. They've been on my ass ever since we did that draft video with Azar, but nevertheless, it's just the logical thing, and I don't mean any harm to Pistons fans. I don't hate the Pistons. I don't hate their fans. I'm just putting two and two together. That's just what I think. That's why we make these videos, to just give our opinions on the game. But yeah, I certainly do agree with that take, and I think it's a bit of a shame seeing such a quality player like Ivy come off the bench, and it is because of the fit purposes with Azar and Cade Cunningham. But next team, we have the Golden State Warriors. Now, this one I'm not 100% on yet, but my hot take is that Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody should be starting for the Golden State Warriors. They're two quality young pieces that they have to build around for the future. They got rid of Wiseman for a reason, sent him off to Detroit because they wanted to prioritize these two young players. So why hold them hostage on the bench when you have a guy like Clay who might not be there long term, Chris Paul might not be there long term, Draymond might not be there long term? You may as well get as much as you can from Kuminga and Moody early on in their careers. And we obviously have seen Kuminga show signs of flashes of greatness, and Moody, we know he's a solid role player already, so why not just give him the keys and let him run loose? That's my hot take, and that's honestly what I think, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Warriors fans will agree with you, but I definitely think you're not wrong. Like, the last thing they want is to sacrifice, I guess, their future and what they've looked, I guess, to build on in terms of development with these young guys for, a couple more years of, four of their obviously cornerstone, or three of their cornerstone pieces, and Chris Paul obviously at Chris Paul in the late stages of his career. You don't want to really stunt the other guy's growth by obviously continuing to embrace him, no matter how legendary and how important they were to the, I guess, fortunes of this franchise as from previous years. So not a bad take by you, and I really like Kuminga. Moody, Steve Kerr seems to trust him, and Kuminga's only gotten better since the acquisition of Chris Paul, and obviously what we saw in preseason. I definitely think he's got a lot of potential, and whether it's on the Warriors going forward in the future, or whether he finds a new home, I think he's going to flourish. So yeah, I like it, but not sure whether Warriors fans will agree with you an awful lot, but that's why it's a bold take at the end of the day.
Spot on.
So the next team, the Houston Rockets, again, didn't play much today, but I did a video on him probably like a month and a bit ago, after the Summer League took place. And it was about Cam Whitmore and how I believe that he has the most superstar potential out of anyone in this draft. And my bold take is he'll become a perennial all-star in the future and has the superstar potential written all over him. So again, it's a bit of a logjam at that front court spot in terms of the small forwards with Dylan Brooks. Amen Thompson plays a few of those minutes. Cam Whitmore, even Jabari Smith, throw him into the mix in that front court setting, and it becomes a big logjam. So I think the only downside is, he might not get minutes early on in his career, but from what all accounts and from what we've seen so far, he definitely has all the right tools to be a tremendous player in this league, and that's my bold take. Whether it happens, obviously it's not going to happen this year, but this is more for the future, so that's something I believe may take place.
I actually like that. You're calling it super early, but at the end of the day, personally, as Rockets, I don't love the Rockets, and I don't love Jabari Smith Jr. I do think Tate's a very solid player, but I don't think he's their long-term four. I think Cam Whitmore, I think he slots in there somewhere. Hopefully they make the most out of his potential. I know you really rated him. I really wanted the Lakers to draft him. Obviously they took Hoodscafino, but Cam Whitmore, can't go wrong there. He impressed me in preseason, and I think he'll impress me in the NBA, that's for sure. For my next team, the Indiana Pacers. This one, it's very bold, but personally, my hot take is, I do believe this as well. Jalen Smith should be the Indiana Pacers' third star, with Tyrese and Mathurin at the forefront. I think Miles Turner, even though we signed that extension, I don't think the best is in front of him. I know he's a very good player, great shot blocker, can stretch the floor, hit threes. I think Jalen Smith can do that as well, though. And I think he's younger. I think his defensive impact's improving. I think he might be a better offensive player than Miles Turner ever really was. And I think we saw that today in like 13 minutes of action. He had like 13 and 8, shot the ball efficiently. I think he's really valuable, but he just needs, the time put into his development. He needs the minutes, and I think he can rock out with Halliburton and with Mathurin.
Yeah, I like that. I watch a lot of Pacers basketball, and he came on in leaps and bounds last year, and it only looks like he's continuing to get better, and he's still super young. And obviously, the time he spent with the Phoenix Suns was invaluable under Monty Williams, and although he didn't spend an awful lot of time there, I think, it shows that the Indiana Pacers rated him highly enough to acquire him and to give him an opportunity to show what he could do. And yeah, I definitely don't think it's something to rule out, but obviously we know that Miles Turner now signed that extension. He's set on being part of the Indiana Pacers, especially with a cornerstone piece like Halliburton running the show and getting everyone involved. I think he's really going to thrive and enjoy that, but I can definitely see that happening. I couldn't rule it out entirely, but just have to wait and see how it plays out, I guess. But not a bad take by yourself there. Next team, the Los Angeles Clippers. So my hot take is James Harden gets his wish and becomes a Clipper before the trade deadline.
Dang.
Somehow they make it work, and somehow he ends up on that team. And then that'll leave you with a team of James Harden and Russell Westbrook again, going back to their OKC and Houston Rockets days, and PG and Kawhi, the starting or a big four, if you want to call it. So having those guys in the starting lineup, and yeah, I mean, how that dynamic will work, I'm not too sure. Again, James Harden, a lot of questionable decisions have been made by him during this offseason, calling out Daryl Morey, continuing to not show up to Sixers training camp and, into the organization itself, to practice, so on and so forth. So how they're going to take on his attitude and whether that might deter them from completing this trade is one thing, but it's crazy to me that the Clippers actually declined the the trade offer from the Sixers because they wanted to keep Terrence Mann. I don't know the real hype behind Terrence Mann and why they rate him so highly. I get he's younger. I get he can play solid defense and he's like an important role player throughout that organization. But when you have an opportunity to get a guy like James Harden, regardless if he comes with a bit of baggage, he's still an elite player and a guy averaging 21, 8, and 10 and we're thinking that that's a down year for a guy like James Harden. That's crazy to me because that's some guys' peak sort of statistics in their best years of their career. So I still think it's worth taking a chance, and that to me is what I believe will happen, and that's a hot take for the Clippers.
I somewhat like it. I don't love the Clippers, being a Lakers fan growing up, but I think James Harden gets his wish, goes back to LA. That's pretty cool. I mean, we get to see the end of Daryl Morey is a liar. I repeat, Daryl Morey is a liar. So that'll be good. Harden's finally coming back to play basketball. Honestly, it would be pretty exciting. I mean, Westbrook and Harden reuniting is pretty cool. Kawhi PG. That team's stacked on paper. But somehow the Clippers will do, I guess, the miraculous way that they always do and still somehow fail because that's what they do. Nah.
Do you know what's crazy about that though as well? Is that if Harden ends up on that team alongside PG, Kawhi, and Russ, all four of those guys are from the LA area.
That's
Russell is from Gardena, or Lawndale, whichever, Long Beach, somewhere around that area. PG's from Palmdale. James Harden's from Compton, and Kawhi Leonard also from the Compton Riverside area. So that's crazy to me.
That's
that
cool,
the Clippers have 4 LA-based guys potentially on their roster
And then
in the
Big
starting
Z at the
lineup. To me,
5.
that's just brings it out. Yeah, he's become he's Los Angeles native now after spending all that time there, the Lakers and the Clippers. So he
From
counts
Compton.
too.
Big Z from Compton. The Los Angeles Lakers. Jackson Hayes. He ends up being a better fit than Christian Wood is at the 5. I think Jackson Hayes gives the Lakers what they need. That's just shot blocking, rebounding, and dunks. I think, hey, that's all we really need from Jackson. We just need another JaVale McGee. I like Christian Wood, but I don't think the Lakers need a real true 5. That's what they need next to Anthony Davis. I think Hayes is much so more like that than Christian Wood. So for that reason, that is my hot take for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one for the Lakers. I mean, it was they're all over the shop with that second unit against the Nuggets. And yeah, Jackson Hayes, great rim runner, great rim protector, but I think the lack of that jump shot and the lack of an offensive game, I don't know, maybe that will hinder AD because he loves to operate from that low block, that elbow, and yeah, that's the only thing that might possibly rule that out. But again, depending on how Christian Wood goes and depending on what the Lakers throw up, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. But for my next take, so Memphis Grizzlies time, I'm fine in the West. To me, after watching Desmond Bane today, and obviously with Ja being out for the first 25 games of the season, Desmond Bane had 31, 5, and 5 today. He looked really, really good, super efficient. I think Desmond Bane will be an all-star this season. It's going to be a tough log jam, especially in the West with how talented a lot of these guys are, especially in the Western Conference. But to me, he can definitely stack a really good 25-game block together. And then when Ja does come back, there's no reason to say that he can't continue to be that number one scoring option even when Ja's back until Ja gets, I guess, his legs under him and, gets that match conditioning back and that game-like conditioning back. So, I mean, we've seen it last year, even before the injury. Desmond Bane did look like he was producing at an all-star level. So, I think this could be the year that he does break into that frame. So, yeah, it's a bold one, but it's definitely not a wild take, that's for sure.
Fair take, fair take. My next hot take, the Miami Heat. I kind of pulled this one out my ass, I'm not going to lie. But after missing out on Damian Lillard, they will pursue a trade for another point guard. And that point guard is none other than Trae Young after he wants out of the Atlanta Hawks. And that will happen at the trade deadline or the All-Star break.
I don't dislike that at all. Kyle Lowry's getting on in age. you're sort of having Tyler Hero kind of having to run the show a bit at the lead guard spot, and then obviously Jimmy playing a little bit of that point forward kind of role. So, I mean, yeah, I don't hate it. I definitely think it's a possibility, especially with Trey's ability to distribute the basketball in that two-man game with him and Bam, and being able to find the open shooters in Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. I think it could definitely work, but it just depends on if they'd have to give up a couple of those guys for Trey Young. So, yeah. But for my next hot take, Milwaukee Bucks. It's not really a hot take. I think this is probably the least bold or hot take that I've made out of all the teams thus far. In my opinion, Marjon Beauchamp is a top 3 finalist for most improved and arguably could win the entire award. So that's probably not as bold as the other ones, but again, it all depends on how many minutes he gets and how much trust Adrian Griffin shows in him early on in the season. But from all indications, obviously he's had a tremendous offseason. He's worked on his game. We've seen it in preseason, how much more comfortable he looks on the NBA floor. And Dame even came out and said he's the kind of rookie that I'd love to mentor and the kind of guy that the kind of teammate I love to have, especially as a young teammate. So to get praise like that from Dame is obviously just shows the amount of respect Dame has for him, and shows the character and the work ethic of a guy like Marjon Beauchamp. So for that reason, I think he can definitely be the most improved player.
I really hope so, because I just picked him up my ESPN fantasy team after making a few mistakes. I traded Derek Lively stupidly for Gordon Hayward, and I also waived Jalen Johnson. So hopefully Marjon Beauchamp, hopefully he kind of redeems those 2 mistakes. So I certainly love that one. I think it's probably the most realistic one that we've put to the table thus far. But my next hot take, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Leonard Miller, the rookie, long-term will be replacing Rudy Gobert, and he will slide to the 4. Cat will slide back to the 5. That's what the Minnesota Timberwolves will be doing. They'll be moving on from Rudy Gobert at all costs. Leonard Miller, he's next up. He'll be great. He'll be a great addition for the Wolves.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I like it. No, I really love Leonard
pretty
Miller.
bold.
I remember. I think you remember in the mock draft in our own NBA 2023 draft that we did. I even mentioned in our mock that I had him in like the lottery or the late lottery. So I definitely did rate him highly. So it's nothing on Leonard Miller, but going off today's game, Cat 7 of 24 from the field on 16 points. And then Rudy going for 15 and 12 with 4 blocks, 2 steals, or if it might have been 4 steals, 2 blocks. Yeah, I know, but it's just inconsistencies with Cat that kill me, and for that reason, I would almost just part ways with him. He's just he's the most frustrating and most polarizing player, because he can sometimes be arguably the best player in the league on a nightly basis, but then he comes out and just has an absolute stinker the next game, and it like makes you question like what is happening with this guy. So for that reason, yeah, I like the Leonard Miller part of it. I don't know necessarily if you get rid of Gobert, maybe you get rid of Cat, but that's for Timberwolves fans to argue about and for them to come at us. So yeah. But for my next team, the New Orleans Pelicans, my bold take is based off Zion staying healthy this season. The Pelicans make the playoffs and they make noise come playoff time. I think, Zion is the key to that New Orleans offense running smoothly. He's a difference maker defensively. We saw in that preseason game, again, I know it was preseason, but he looks so good on the defensive side of the ball with those 5 steals. Posterized Jaren Jackson Jr. today, looked really explosive. Again, there's always going to be question marks about his health because he hasn't proven year on year that he can play more than 30 games in a season. But if he can do that miraculously, you got BI, who's obviously, in the prime of his career. You got CJ McCollum, who still can produce at a high rate. Herb Jones, one of the best perimeter defenders and one of the best defenders full stop in this entire association. And then you got guys like Trey Murphy once he comes back from his injury. You got Jose Alvarado off the bench, that energy guy, that spark, and then Jonas Valanciunas holding down the fort. I think you got a really solid team there, and there's no reason why, when those guys all gel together and when they're clicking and at full steam, there's no reason why this team can't make noise. As you saw how good they were when Zion was healthy, they were nearly up at that number 1 seed, similar to like what happened with Lonzo with Chicago before he got injured. So, yeah, I think that's my hot take. Obviously, it's gonna take a lot of hoping and praying that Zion stays healthy, but yeah, I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but it's going to be a bit of a question mark.
I like it. I think Zion well and truly could lead the Pelicans to any measure. I think he's a great asset, but like you mentioned, just needs to stay healthy, take care of that weight issue. But he's a generational talent. I mean, we all see it, we all know that. So I definitely think you could be spot on. But my next hot take for the New York Knicks. Now, this one, it might be a bit of a stupid one. Knicks fans might not love this, but I think personally, Evan Fournier, I really rate the guy. I think he should be playing like 20 to 25 minutes a night. I think he's a valuable scorer. He's great from three. And I think the Knicks are holding him hostage by not even playing him for a minute. So that's my hot take, and I'll stand by it as an Evan Fournier fan.
Who would you have minutes be taken from to give him minutes, though, out
Probably
of the
like,
guys that are currently getting?
I wouldn't take, maybe I'll play 20, so I would like probably give Mick Bry a little bit less, maybe keep Quickly's minutes, maybe Grimes a tiny bit less, and then besides that, like, I just think he needs to be in that rotation. Like, I think he's too good to just not play. So, yeah, I think you just take a little bit less from everybody, you just give him a little bit of time.
That's more of a product of Tom Thibodeau, though. We saw it, as you can see.
I'm not a fan of Tibbs, to be honest.
Holding Obi Toppin hostage, and then seeing how he's sort of starting to thrive. Yeah, D Rose. Yeah, Tibbs has just notoriously been a guy that plays, starters 40+ minutes. Hence why D Rose ended up suffering that knee injury, in my opinion. So, but for my next team, OKC, I think this one's kind of a given, but I think he can continue to have an ascension to go one level above, and that's to me SGA becoming a top 5 player in the league, not just obviously as an All NBA first team caliber player, which he was last year as a one of the 5 best players in the league. I think he can become a top 5 player full stop. So today 31, 5 and 10. He had a block and 2 steals. Very efficient shooting again, which is something we've just continued to expect from a guy like SGA. And then obviously getting to the foul line and living at the 3-throw line, that just makes life easier for the Thunder and for himself to be obviously able to open up the rest of the floor for him. So yeah, I think if he continues to play the way he has, not only for Team Canada, but obviously during the back end of last year and how he started this season, there's no reason why he can't be a top 5 player. So that's my hot take for the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, I do think, hey, why not? MVP candidate last year, why not? My next team, the Orlando Magic. Now, people probably disagree with me on this, and I know there are a lot of Banchero stands out there, but Franz Wagner over Paolo, I take him any day. He's more efficient. I think he's more versatile on the defensive end. I think he's a better playmaker. I think it's more so Franz' team than it is Paolo. So that's just my hot take. That's what I believe at this current point in time. Maybe Orlando probably will go in the direction of Banchero, but personally, if I was running the front office, I'd be Franz Wagner number 1, Paolo number 2.
Franz he's come on in leaps and bounds, and I think the confidence he took from that FIBA World Cup showing and proving that he could play, at a high level amongst the best players. Obviously, not every top player obviously played in the World Cup, but proving that he could lead a team like Germany to winning the whole thing, and then coming back into preseason and looking really sharp. That game against the Pelicans, he looked really good, and then even today again, I definitely can see that possibly happening. And there's no reason why, especially with Banchero maybe going through some second-year blues, which a lot of players do tend to go through. That definitely could happen. So yeah, I don't disagree with that, to be honest. But we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But next team, Philly, Tyrese Maxey, based off James Harden being on the way out, has a breakout year and becomes an all-star in the East. So I think from what we see with Maxey, he improves every year. He averaged 21, 3 and 3 last year. I can see those numbers going up. He can average a couple more assists a game, getting a lot more touches on the offense, getting more of the ball handling duties, and then continuing to work on his shot creation, which obviously he's shown a lot of improvement in, but in general, in terms of his entire game, I think he can definitely break out and have that season that really cements him as like a breakout star and as a true all-star in this league. So yeah, I think that's my hot take for the Philly.
Do rate it. Do think it's possible. My next hot take is the Phoenix Suns. I think the Phoenix Suns, they have the worst depth chart in the league. That's just what I believe. I mean, who's behind KD at the power forward? Who's behind Nurkic at the center? Probably Eubanks, actually. That's all right. Small forward, Eric Gordon. I don't know about it. And then besides that, the point guard's the real one. Like, Devin Booker's probably the PG right now, which is absolutely fine. But then you got Jordan Goodwin, you got Saban Lee. I don't know, man. I'm not really too keen on Phoenix Suns' depth chart at this current point in time.
Yeah, I think with Phoenix, they just went and signed a lot of bench depth.
Yeah.
But the bench depth isn't necessarily like
they can't
high quality
afford it.
bench players. Besides, yeah, exactly. Besides Grayson Allen, besides Eric Gordon, who's shown that he can still be a really solid player in this league. The rest of them have sort of just been journeymen. Or I mean, Watanabe can hit threes, and he was a really
Eubanks
high
is all
percentage
right, but
3-point shooter.
Yeah.
But none of them are like game changers. None of them are like game changing bench role players like a guy like Bruce Brown, who we mentioned earlier about with the Denver Nuggets, who's now on the Indiana Pacers. Like, that's the kind of difference makers you need in terms of your bench depth, not guys like a Eubanks or a Bol or these sort of players that they've signed. Cater Bates, D-Up, Eubanks. But for my next team, the Portland Trailblazers, the hot take I have is, despite the early team struggles, which we saw today, the chemistry sort of is still a little bit lacking. With how many changes they obviously had with that Dame Lillard trade, and then obviously with flipping Drew Holiday, the Blazers sneak into the play-in despite this, and potentially earn a playoff spot. So right now they look like a lottery team, and they look like they might have the worst record in the league, but I think they're gonna improve on that. I think Scoot's gonna maybe shake off a little bit of that early rust. Shaden Sharp's gonna continue to improve. They got Anthony Simons. Jeremy Grant still looks like a solid option. DeAndre Ayton, he didn't have the best game today. He got into foul trouble, but like with those kind of guys, and then you got add in the mix Malcolm Brogdon, who had a solid game today. They have a really good squad, and there's no reason for them to be in a position that they are in right now, and not playing the most efficient or cohesive basketball. So I think that changes, and I think that they definitely sneak into the play-in going forward.
I like it. I love the Blazers myself. They're probably my second team. So I'm a believer. I'll stick with the Blazers until they tear me to the ground and bash me until my heart is broken. So Aiden, you will be the next big thing. Scoot will as well. Sharp, you're the man. I'm going to get your jersey soon. Love the Blazers. My next team is the Sacramento Kings. Now, I don't really believe this, but I think it's a hot take, and it was really hard for me to come up with one. So I said, the Kings, they made the playoffs last year. They were a top 4 seed. But this year, they did that just to come back out of the playoffs and miss the playoffs this year with the ascension of the teams in the West. Maybe the Kings slip out. I don't think this is going to happen, but I think it wouldn't surprise me just knowing the Sacramento Kings history. So I put that as a hot take, but that took me a while to come up with, and I don't think they will slip out, but I think they could. So I had to put that in there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the wildest one so far. I mean, we've had a few wild ones, but that one's, I don't know. I just don't see it with Mike Brown. I think how much respect he has from the playing group, and with the continued improvement of a guy like Keegan Murray, and we know what to expect from De'Aaron Fox. Malik Monk looks as good as he has been. Harrison Barnes, turning back the clock. Again, I know it's only one game, but I just don't see them falling out. But again, it's the NBA basketball landscape. It can definitely change.
Kings fans come at me. I've had it my whole life, so don't worry about it. Got 2 mates and they're hardcore Kings
he's just
fans.
He's just a Lakers fan who just despises the Kings, so that's why he's been the harshest towards you guys.
Absolutely, no, you're not wrong.
But yeah, moving on. Anyways, San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, got a lot of excitement with Wemby, and the fortunes of the franchise changing, and another hot take, which involves one of the young assets, a guy I really rated highly for a number of years now, is Devin Vassell, and I believe that Devin Vassell will win the Most Improved Player award this year. I said that Marjon Beauchamp might be a top three finalist and could win it. I honestly believe, though, Devin Vassell will win it. Just from what he's shown the last few years in terms of his improvement, and then what we saw from him in preseason, his shot creation, coming off the mid-range. I think him being a mid-range threat is so underrated, especially come playoff time if they do obviously have that push. With the emergence of Wemby, they might definitely push towards that playing spot. I think a guy like Devin Vassell who can make shots from that mid-range area, which is an underrated part of the game in playoff basketball, because obviously with teams, they try and block up the paint and stop the easy layups, and they obviously also defend really tight on the perimeter. So having a guy that can score in that in between area, like a guy like Devin Vassell can, to me that just is definitely a super important thing. So that's for that reason I think Devin Vassell wins it, and I think just how far he's come. And even today, watching the game and how comfortable he looked out there, I think it's only going to continue. So for me, he wins the Most Improved Player.
I love that take. Love Devin Vassell. Shout out. I think he had like 23 points today, like 3, 5, and 2. The only reason I know that is, once again, shout out ESPN Fantasy. He's in my team. And that's only grown my fandom for him. So I do really like that pick. I think, like you said, he's a great defensive and great offensive player. And I think he ascended last year as a very quality NBA player. This season, he could ascend even more into like an all-star caliber guy. There's no reason why not. So, I think you're on the money. I think that honestly, I do think will come into fruition. So, love that pick. My next team, the Toronto Raptors. I wasn't really too sure about a hot take for them, but I had to go on the route of, why is Pascal Siakam at the organization still? After all that trade talk, after, the mock trades with him going to Atlanta, him going to other teams, going to the Kings, he's still at Toronto. So I do think, why is he actually there? They got Scotty, they got Precious, they got OG. So many players who play like Pascal, and he's only getting older. I don't think his value's increasing. So my hot take is that he does get dealt towards the All-Star break. I don't know what for, but I think he's only going to decline in value, and his value is still at a pretty good ratio. Like, he's still an All-Star caliber guy. So why not get back what you can right now?
Yeah, well, we had him in our top 10 power forwards, so clearly if he's in that conversation, he's definitely got a lot of value still to give to any organization, and the Raptors would be silly to try and keep him before he starts to decline, and then you're going to be regretting it and trying to find a sucker to obviously take on a trade for Pascal Siakam. So the earlier you can do it, the better. And my last team, at least, that I have for the hot takes is the Utah Jazz, and in my opinion, Walker Kessler this year will be a top 3 candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. I think obviously this is going to take into account a lot of what the Utah Jazz does this season and how much their record improves from last season. But I think we saw with the limited time that Walker Kessler was on the court last year, in the minutes that he did get, he blocked as many shots as anyone in the league. He averaged 2.7 blocks per game. It was an immediate game changer on that side of the ball, and I think it just made defending a lot easier for the Utah Jazz, even when they, a man got beaten off the dribble penetration, and it was exposed on the weak side. Walker Kessler would come around and contest a shot, and again, he just really helped them a lot on that side of the ball. And there's no reason why, again, with a year of experience under his belt in the NBA, that he can't continue to improve and really push for that Defensive Player of the Year award. I don't think it'll happen, but I definitely think it's a possibility for sure with how much of a game changer he is on that side of the ball.
Yeah, he's extremely valuable. I feel like he really could be like a top 5 center of the future. There's no reason why not. Like, he gives you whatever you need. He can shoot threes, block shots, post up. He's like just the perfect big that you would love to have. But I think you're also on the money with that one. But the last team for me, the Washington Wizards. Now, this is your franchise, and I do think you're going to disagree with my hot take. It's very bold, and
Here
it
we
might
go.
not be correct. But look, I look at the Wizards. I was a fan back in the day. They had Brad Beal, John Wall. They were tearing it up. I thought this team could go to the finals, give the Celtics a run for their money. They were really exciting. I love that team. But since that, there's been a bit of an issue. I think after the departure from John Wall, the Brad Beal, Russell Westbrook era, I wasn't really too much of a fan. The Washington Wizards, they need culture. They haven't had that for a while. I don't think they've played the game in the right brand of basketball for a while now. It's all really been like ISO ball, with Brad Beal, with Brandon Jennings, with John Wall, whoever it was. Gilbert Arenas going that far, but I look at a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, I look at Denny Advija, and I think these two players I would much rather build around long term and have, like a Spurs trajectory, build in around a kind of like a unit, like a team. Sharing the ball around, not having Kuzma, not having Jordan Poole take like 40 to 50 shots per night, but kind of build a real offense. Like, I think Bilal and Denny, they need the ball in their hands because they can make plays for their teammates. And I think Poole and Kuzma, they kind of, as good as they are and as talented as they are, I don't think that they bring that aspect where it's like they can get theirs, play make for the guys around them. I just don't think that will lead to winning. So I'm saying build around Denny and build around Bilal over Poole and over Kuzma. That is a hot take for you. A lot of people probably don't agree with me. A lot of Wizards fans probably hate that, but that's just me.
Well, to be honest, I don't hate it because I think both of those guys are two of our best defenders alongside Daniel Gafford. I think despite the fact, obviously, Denny gets a lot of, slander towards him because he's not assertive enough or, he hasn't been consistent with his offensive game over the past couple of years since he has been drafted into the league. I do believe that he still offers a lot. And again, there's only one way to really get confidence on that side of the ball, and that's been by getting, the ball in your hands, getting touches, and then, the game will start to come to you. But if you're having guys like Kuzma and Jordan Poole isolating or, trying to go to work for most possessions in the game, you end up becoming cold. And then, let's say someone starts to get double teamed in that situation, then guys get the ball in their hands and they haven't touched the ball for a few possessions. And then how do you expect them to make shots? How do you expect them to actually, get into the flow of the offense? So I don't necessarily dislike it. I think when you do have a guy like Jordan Poole with the shot making that he does have, you kind of have to trust him sometimes. Obviously, you're going to get the good and the bad of Jordan Poole. We saw that 41-point game again, mind you, preseason game. Today he looks pretty decent, but when you have a guy like Tyus Jones, who, is one of the best backup point guards, who's now starting for you, who's a great distributor, who doesn't turn the ball over, I think that in itself should be an indication of what kind of basketball style you should be playing, which is a pick and roll, share the ball, get plenty of ball movement. I think that in itself you're not wrong about, but I just think it also needs to come down to guys like Denny, guys like Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly to continue to
Develop.
want to be aggressive and want to be that scoring option, because you can't be a number one option on a team, or you can't be a guy that someone leans on if you're not going to be assertive enough. You know what I mean? I feel like confidence and assertiveness is two of the most important things in being a good NBA player, because Denny, Bilal, Corey Kispert, they all have the talent, flowing out of them and flowing through their veins. But I think the one area that really, to me, has let Denny down is his confidence. And that's the difference between great NBA players and NBA players that have really long, successful careers, and guys that can obviously make all-star games, all NBA teams, and become genuine stars in this league, and guys who just, play a role and are content with that. So if Denny can be more assertive, then I definitely would love to see him be the number one option. He's 6'10", he can handle the ball, he can defend, he's, a willing rebounder, he hustles. I think he just needs to get more consistency and confidence with that three-point shot and not be afraid to, attack the lane. He's way more athletic than people think he is, that people give him credit for. So he just needs to use that. And, Bilal Coulibaly, I've really liked what I've seen. Every time he gets the ball, something does happen with it. And even on the defensive side of the ball today, he had 3 blocks. So I don't hate the take. And although, again, we have two 20-plus point per game scorers, they are selfish. They are a lot to themselves. And I don't think they have the best interest of the team at heart. So for that reason, I don't disagree with you. And I definitely think we need to go in that direction. But it also comes down to those players. If they are going to be guys that we lean on, again, just have to be a bit more, assertive about being those number one or number two options. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, a lot to work with the Wizards and a lot to improve on. It's tough being a Wizards fan, but I think we've got a lot more positivity to look forward to than we have in previous years. So fingers crossed that it continues to be on the up from here for us.
No, I think you guys will be good. Like, I was watching Denny today in that first half. He was really impressive, but then he only took 8 shots. So you are spot on with, like, they need to be, like, more assertive to kind of get more shot attempts. And then Bilal, like, when he had it, he distributed the ball well. He took the right shots. But it's like you go up the floor 10 times, you only get 1 touch. So, yeah, I do agree. It's going to be harder for a guy like Bilal to kind of fit in as a rookie naturally. You're not going to get the touches you kind of want. But for Denny, it's really time for him to, turn those 6 to 7 to 8 shot attempts into, like, we need 16 shot attempts from you. We need, like, maximum shot attempts every single game for you to progress because, like you said before, 6'10", puts the ball on the floor. He's athletic. He can shoot. There's no reason why he should not be a star in the making. Like, Denny has all the tools to be something really special. It's really only up to him.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pre-draft clips. He took the ball coast to coast, and he got above the rim. He looked like he was quicker than everyone on the court. Mind you, again, he was playing in the Israeli league, still a strong league, but ultimately, there's no reason why you can't take that confidence into the NBA. You're just as much of an athlete as half these guys are, hence why you can stay with guys defensively and make life difficult for them on that defensive side of the ball. If you can be a lockdown defender and a really good defender at that in the NBA, you clearly have the right tools and the athletic makeup to do it. So there's no reason why that just can't translate to the offensive side. And that's why I get frustrated with him, because I really do like him and I really want him to do well. But too many times in games I see, like last year, the potential to be like this number one guy and this really star player that everyone expected him to. And then other times it's like he's just
doing nothing.
Coast through like he's a passenger. Yeah, and you're doing nothing. So that to me is the frustrating part about him. But hopefully, like I said, he turns the corner. We just gave him that extension for 4 years, $55 million. So I'm hoping that, things go well for Deni Avdija. But again, the jury's out, and the jury's out for a number of those guys that we have drafted in the past few years. We could have had Halliburton at number 9. We picked Avdija. We could have had Alperen Şengün. We picked Corey Kispert. So if those guys don't improve and start to, continually work on what they need to work on year in, year out, then those decisions might come back to really haunt us going forward. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to harp on too much. My blood pressure's rising now. But, yeah, pretty much hopefully we can turn the corner with this new front office and this new strategy that they've got for the team for the future. So, yeah, with that all being said, I'll leave it at that.
Do you have one more team, or is that GG's?
No. That's GG's, man. That's GG's, my guy. We've pretty much covered every team, 30 teams in the NBA. So
that was crazy.
Yep,
that was fun.
It was, man.
It was a lot longer than I thought it would be, but hopefully you guys at home did enjoy. But yeah, that was crazy. Good fun though.
I didn't. That's what I was gonna say. Time flies when you're having fun, and when you get really passionate about these particular takes, and when you want to put your 2 cents out there about every team. Things obviously drag on a little bit, but I think you guys will enjoy this as much as we did. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are 97 subs away from 1,000. That's the first major milestone in our YouTube journey. If you didn't follow us from the start, obviously we started this 7-8 months ago, and it's progressed quite rapidly for us. And we're so proud of the journey so far, and we wouldn't have done it without you guys and the loyal viewers out there, and we're not going to be able to continue to do that unless you guys continue to show that support and subscribe and continue to make it all worthwhile. We'll still do this regardless of how many people watch, but we'd ultimately love for as many people to come along on the journey with us. So with that being said, if you haven't already done so, like, comment, subscribe, get the discussion rolling. And yeah, we really enjoy any feedback, positive, negative. We want all the smoke, like we always say every single video. So feel free to leave any comment, nasty or positive. So with that being said, this has been your boy Danko.
It's been Marks from the bench. Well, appreciate you guys clicking on this video today. If you made it this far, shout out to you. That's a hell of an effort. And let us know what team you support in the NBA and what you thought of that hot take, and if you disagree with it or agree, like you said, because we want to hear what you guys have to say about your own teams. Because as NBA fans ourselves, we also get mad when we see certain things. So we can only relate, but at the same time, yeah, we want to hear what you guys have to say, absolutely.
100%. But for now, that's all we have time for, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace out. Boom.
That was good, bro.
Hello, yes, you at home. This is Commissioner of the NBA speaking to you, Adam Silver. Here's a message in courtesy of BenchMob in collaboration with the NBA Store. When BenchMob hits 1,000 subscribers, they'll be giving away a free NBA jersey to a lucky subscriber. So just do all the things listed on the screen. God damn it.